what's so remarkable about this case is that even as the Department of Justice was bringing this case, they had a policy for more than 50 years that says people like me, senior White House advisors, alter egos of the president, cannot be compelled to testify before Congress. Absolute. Yet they brought the case. This case is a landmark case because it's about the constitutional separation of powers. That goes back to the days of George Washington when the legislative branch first began to try and meddle with the executive branch. And if you go back and look at the Supreme Court rulings, few and far between all they are, and more importantly, the Department of Justice position, then you will understand that there are very good reasons why executive privilege is sacrosanct. It's the mechanism by which effective presidential decision-making is made. So this case is not about me. I happen to be the only one in the barrel on this. And what's interesting about this case is that Judge Amit Mehta, during the course of this case, actually made history. How did he do that? He made history by ruling that people like me, senior White House advisors, cannot be compelled to testify. He said that. No judge has ever said that before. Now, the reason why he felt that it did not apply to me is because he did not believe, despite all of the evidence we put on, including my own personal testimony, that the privilege had been properly invoked. And that's another open question for the appeals court, because there are many legal scholars who believe that the privilege is presumptive. Presumptive. There are many other issues that are related to this case that are open questions. But at the end of the day, the day that Judge Mehta ruled that I could not use executive privilege as the defense in this case, the die was cast. This was pro forma. Pro forma. We knew going in what the verdict was going to be. That's why this is going to the appeals court. And we feel, look, I said from the beginning, this is going to the Supreme Court. I said from the beginning, I am willing to go to prison to settle this issue. I'm willing to do that. But I also know that the likelihood of me going to prison is relatively small because we are right on this issue. And you know how I know that? The Department of Justice told us so in memos that span more than 50 years. So you put yourself in my shoes. I go into the White House in 2017. For 3 years, I helped the president create hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs during the pandemic. Every one of you here used masks, gloves, thermometers. Many of you got vaccinated. Many of you used things like remdesivir or monoclonal antibodies. I helped do that. I did. I was one of the guys in the White House. I was one of the guys in the White House early on, February 2020, writing memos say, this is serious. We got to get off the dime. And what do I get for that? Prison. I get a House of Representatives controlled by Nancy Pelosi trying to put me in prison. Why? Because I'm a Trump guy. And I get a Biden White House and a Biden Department of Justice with the Merrick Garland running it, running a part. Is anybody listening? Anybody want to tell me that I would be here if Republicans had held the House or President Trump was in the office? No. So Little bit of righteous indignation, I think. But I say that that righteousness is well placed here. Now, there's some other issues here. I have to lay this out for you. I was not tried for contempt of Congress today. That's not what the trial was about. If any of you sat in the trial, you saw the opening argument. You saw the opening argument of John Crabb, the attorney for the prosecution. He didn't argue. He didn't argue the case on contempt. He said that I was responsible for the J6 insurrection, which is totally without fact. Without fact. Without fact. And he did it in his clothes. The judge called him on it, but it still stood. I am not here convicted because of contempt of Congress. I'm here because of association with J6. That's just wrong.
That will come along
That's
later.
just wrong.
You will be
and the issue here, stepping back again, it's not about J6. It's about the constitutional separation of powers between the legislative and the executive branch. The Department of Justice itself says you can't do what the legislative branch has done to me, yet they were the ones prosecuting. That's just wrong.